Hello, BookTube. Lord Ganesha and I have some mail for you today. A bright, beautiful day. Clear, bright blue sky, not a cloud or a hint of a cloud. A little bit stubbornly chilly, at least as far as I'm concerned, since my rules for living nowadays are I am always hungry, the music is always too loud, and I am always cold. So I imagine that someone else walking around outside might not feel that way. And I warmed up eventually when I went on a walk with the Bean. I've gone on a few walks with the Bean, who is here in the room, resentfully staring at me from the bed because she cannot be within 3 feet of me. And she needs to be. Apparently, she needs to be. When she's within 3 feet of me, she's almost indifferent to my presence. But if she's outside of 3 feet of me, then all of a sudden, oh no, then she goes nuts. In fact, I made a video yesterday about book to movie adaptations, and there are a couple of points in that video where you can hear her frustration choking, just going as she thrashes around on the bed. But we've got some mail, and it's a fairly good sized stack. It actually reminded me of the old days on this channel when my motto used to be 8 is enough. When I used to say 8, I want 8 books every day, at least 8. And if those of you who remember those days, the mailman used to bring me a plastic tub full of books. So there were many, many days where I got far more than 8 books. That all changed with the pandemic. And although things are relatively back to normal, I mean, there are people in the loading bays now. There are publicists at their desks. They don't fire hose books anymore unless you're, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or the Washington Post or USA Today or Entertainment Weekly, maybe. I don't think Entertainment Weekly gets scholarly books, but or Big Canoe News in northern Georgia. No, actually not. For those of you who don't get my little in-joke, Big Canoe News in northern Georgia is a beautiful monthly full-color print newspaper. Gorgeous thing in multiple sections. Big honkin' wodge of a thing that you get on your doorstep if you subscribe, as you well should. And it has a book section. Not book coverage here and there in the arts section, but a dedicated 2-page book section. And I am that section's editor. I believe it or not. I know you don't know whether to believe it or not. It doesn't seem all that outlandish to you, but it is a continual source of amazement to me that my life has warped around to the point where I am once again the print book section editor of a newspaper. It's a small newspaper. I may be the smallest dedicated print book section editor anywhere in the country. I'd be willing to bet that I am. There are smaller papers, there are smaller circulations, but not that have a section that is just books. I'm pretty sure that I'm the smallest book section editor as well, as far as that goes. So we don't get any books. And if I requested a book from a publicist I didn't know, and I said I'm requesting this on behalf of Big Canoe News in northern Georgia, I don't think I'd get a reply. Whereas if I request a book on my own name, or for Open Letters, I'm for those of you who don't know, I'm one of the editors at Open Letters Review, which is the online literary journal that is the inheritor of Open Letters Monthly, which I was the managing editor there for 10 years. And we built up a really good reputation. We built up a solid reputation in the publishing world, and that continues. So I have never experimented with requesting a book on behalf of Big Canoe News, and I wouldn't anyway, because it would go to the newsroom in northern Georgia, and I'm in Boston. The wonders of the telecommuting age. But we have a stack of books. Anyway, stack of packages. I don't know. I don't think it'll be duplicated again this week, but it'll be fun to go through, and I'm feeling cocky. We've done many mail hauls. I was on the verge of canceling them completely because I would find myself, eyes up in my head, foam screaming at the camera, and 40 minutes later, and think, well, okay, that book sent you around the bend. You can't upload this. And I've heard from so many of you who say you actually could upload those. In fact, if you upload those to Patreon only, we'll pay you extra. But I wouldn't want to break the tradition of 99.9% of you completely ignoring my Patreon. So we'll look at these packages, starting with a periodical. This is the New Yorker. It's a double issue. And you have the famous, this is a take-off on the famous Escher print that has a hand drawing a hand. Only this is clearly meant to look at the AI craze, Chat GPT and all that. What if something artificial was doing this. And this has some interesting books coverage. The New Yorker does its books coverage in its own way, and I don't begrudge it that at all. But they have people. You don't really pitch a freelance piece on books to the New Yorker. They have people, and those people write about whatever they want, and they write at exorbitant length, so that it's totally a question of, it's an age-old model of theirs. It's totally a question of what new book happens to strike the fancy of which author, and you can't always guess what that will be. And you never know what you're going to get. And in this issue, Adam Gopnik, who is one of their people, he's one of their poobahs at the New Yorker, but not necessarily a book reviewer. He has a long review of Jonathan Healy's The Blazing World, which is new from Knopf. We saw it on this channel, not the book, but I think it was one of my anticipated reads or a roundup of some kind or other. I do so many variations of that. But his piece it's about the English Revolution, and it goes on forever. Just forever. It has this picture here, too. This is clearly fantasy on many different levels, but that's interesting to me that you would do that. There's also you're not going to be able to make it out on camera, but there is a full-page cartoon in here. Well, there's a smaller cartoon that I loved, absolutely loved. It's a typical scenario for the New Yorker. It's a priest talking over a body in a casket, and the caption is, now there's one less conspiracy theorist in the world. Or is there? that is choice. But there was a piece in here, there was a cartoon in here that I really didn't see coming. It really sort of blindsided me. It's by Roz Chast, who is one of the greatest New Yorker cartoonists of them all, and who has reached the point in her career where she doesn't really have to yuck it up or pay a punchline writer or anything like that. She pretty much do what she wants. She's brilliant. And she has a piece, it's a full-page thing. It's called Bon Voyage, and it compares life to an airline flight. That you don't really know how you got on it. You're kind of stuck on it. Maybe you meet somebody. You've got to spend time some way. Maybe the somebody and you are going to have a family. You might dull the pain with Ambien or wine or whatever. There's always going to be food served. And sooner or later, it's going to end. It's not meant to be funny, I don't think, in any way. But it reminds me of, she had a cartoon collection, a cartoon book, a cartoon story, years and years ago, that was incredibly touching about her aging parents. I loved it. I will save it. I will clip it out and save it. I just don't know how to categorize it, that all. But they also have mail. The New Yorker, for a long time, the New Yorker didn't run letters. In fact, they were tweaked for that fact by Spy Magazine. And one of the letters here, I have a rude awakening for its author. We talked, actually, when we were talking about the New Yorker a week ago, something like that, we talked about an article about the rise of Christian nationalism in the United States. Revanchist, violent, explicitly fascist Christian nationalism. And someone from Massachusetts wrote in, I'm glad to see Khalifa Sana's article on Christian nationalism, a movement that I believe betrays both the Constitution and the Gospel. As Christians exit Holy Week, we would do well to recall that Jesus was the victim of a state execution for challenging the powers that be. The founders of this country rightly feared a national church. I wish that Sana had mentioned the robust rejection of Christian nationalism by many, perhaps most, practicing Christians. The organization Christians Against Christian Nationalism, for example, has put out a statement signed by thousands of Christians across the theological and denominational spectrum who reject this movement on religious grounds. And that is from a pastor, no less, in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, no less, if you know anything about Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Well, anyway, who the writer is and where the writer is isn't quite as germane as the fact that I think the writer is dead wrong. I would like to think that the letter writer is correct. But thousands of Christians across multi-denominations out of a country of 150 million Christians, I think most people who are, I mean, there are plenty of people in the United States who would nominally call themselves Christian on a census, for instance. Or in casual conversation, they would say they were Christian, but they don't do anything Christian. They don't go to weekly service. They don't give to the poor. They don't visit the sick unless the sick is a member of their own family. They don't turn the other cheek. They certainly don't turn the other cheek. And they go to service on Easter and Christmas. They're actually called that in all kinds of denominations. They're called Easter and Christmas Christians. If some of those signed this petition, sure. But the people who very actively call themselves Christians and identify as Christians, I believe, I could be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, I believe that the vast majority of those people in this country do support one kind or another of Christian nationalism. I think one of our, here in the United States, we have a lot of really dumb people in Congress. And I know that the citizenry always says, they say, oh, those dummies in Congress. But I mean people who are actually stupid. People who are, if they were having a talk with high school students at the cafeteria of a high school, the students in the high school would say, they'd be texting to each other privately saying, "Jeez, this chick is dumb. she's really dumb. It's kind of embarrassing." And they're grown people who are actually, we call them lawmakers. They don't make laws; they make tweets. But probably the dumbest person in Congress right now. I mean, it's a heated field. It's a very heated field. I would say probably the dumbest person in Congress is Lauren Boebert, a person named Lauren Boebert, who really doesn't seem to know anything except what she considers to be a really kind of quippy, down-home, grits and gravy gotcha line. A Sarah Palin. She's basically Sarah Palin. She is the idiot who made the vampiric, the ghoulish comment when mentioning to the body assembled in Congress that an X percentage of Americans has guns. She gave one of those quippy Sarah Palin, I know, I'm going to say something naughty smiles and said, we need to get that number up. That speech happened a day after a mass shooting. It happened a day before a mass shooting, and while she was saying those words, there was an active shooter on a college campus, and she's smirking and saying, "Let's get that number up." But I don't mean just her depravity. I mean also her stupidity. She doesn't know anything about her job. I know that's not rare for Americans, but it's a little bit alarming when the job is Congress. But she has said many, many times to rapturous applause at packed venues that she doesn't believe in the separation of church and state, that she wants Christian nationalism. She says it openly. Another runner for the dumbest person in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's by far the most dangerous person in Congress, says the same thing. That, this is a Christian country. I am a proud Christian nationalist. Meaning Seven Mountains Dominionism. Meaning here are the 7 aspects of life that we want the Christian church, our own denomination, of course, not the one down the street, to control. We want you to have to ask permission to make any move of any kind in those 7 areas of your life. And they're everything. They're entertainment, they're finance, they're law, they're school, they're the bedroom. This kind of thing doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it doesn't happen without numbers. I think the good pastor might be wrong. And that's a shame and also terrifying. but let's I want to show you that cartoon too, both of them, and also that letter. But now let's move on to the mail here. I wish I could turn the camera here. I'm worried about upsetting it, but my bean is sulking on the bed. She will probably thrash at some point, but she's sulking right now because she's not right next to me. I swear. The nerve. When she is right next to me, she has nothing to do with me. But when she isn't right next to me, well, then she's the most abused dog in the whole world. But anyway, this first one, I have mentioned it on this channel. Now I have a physical copy. This is Jennifer Ackerman, who wrote The Genius of Birds. She's just an amazing writer when it comes to birds. And this is What an Owl Knows. This is her new book. This comes out in June. And this is the advanced copy. Let's see what we got. If you're lucky, you might have seen an owl in the wild only a handful of times. I have. I've gone owling. It's a really arduous thing. It's not like birding, where you walk out in the middle of a beautiful day like this. No. Owls are a lot smarter, and believe you me, they know you're coming long before you have any chance of seeing them. They basically have to let you see them. So owling is arduous, but rewarding. They are elusive Here in New York, Flacco, the Central Park's escaped Eurasian eagle owl, has been on the lam now for several weeks, evading capture to the delight of many. Wow. Well, all right, whoever wrote this pub sheet is up on their birding news in New York, because Flacco is a gigantic owl who escaped from the zoo and is in Central Park. And there are crowds of people. People follow that bird's every known move, literally minute-by-minute updates. It's amazing. You can tell right away. You don't even need to follow the online forums. Excuse me. You can tell right away if there's a Flacco sighting or even the rumor of one because of the crowds of birders. Although, I don't want to flex or anything, but I don't need to go to Central Park. I've already seen a Eurasian eagle owl in the wild. Thank you very much. And it wasn't an escapee from a zoo. But anyway, for millennia, people have been obsessed and enchanted with owls. But only lately have scientists begun to understand in deep detail the complex nature of these extraordinary birds. Some 260 species of owls exist today. They reside on every continent except Antarctica, and they are far more difficult to find and study than other birds. Cryptic, camouflaged, and mostly active during the dark of night, what do we know about what an owl knows? Totally on board. 100% on board. So this comes out in June. How joyous. How absolutely joyous. All right, what a start. I have a good feeling about this mail haul. I don't think I'm going to be screaming at all. I don't think so. We will totally behave ourselves. Okay, well, I said we'll totally behave ourselves right as this package refuses to open. So, to manhandle it open like we were a common mountain gorilla. What have we got here? Okay, this is new from Melville House. This is by Christian Kiefer, and it is called The Heart of It All. And it comes out in September, so that's probably not what the cover is going to look like. Set in a failing small town in central Ohio, this is a breathtaking novel about a culture war that breaks out in an American Rust Belt during the first year of Trump's presidency, Trump fiction. The author has written an empathetic and haunting portrait of a divided country, focusing on the members of three families: the Baileys, a white family who have put down deep roots in the community; the Marwatts, an immigrant family that owns the town's largest employer; and the Shaws, especially young Anthony, an outsider whose very presence gently shakes the town's understanding of itself. Okay, so American Midwest fiction and also Trump fiction. Great, fantastic. We'll see what comes of that. So, can I position you correctly? I want to position you correctly so that I don't need to fuss around to find the details. There we go. Okay, this is pub sheet origami. All right, let's move on to the next one here. It's a finished copy of something. What have we got here? Oh my, okay, this is from Yale University Press. Great folks at Yale University Press have sent me another brainy book. Great, I can't get enough of it. This comes out in late May. This is by Janet Pulaski, and it's called Asylum Between Nations: Refugees in a Revolutionary Era. What have we got here? This book details the story of the first modern refugee crisis, showing how open doors can be a viable alternative to building border walls. Boy, Trump isn't far away from just about any book these days. In the wake of the American and French Revolutions, thousands of men and women took to the roads and waterways on both sides of the Atlantic, refugees in search of their inalienable rights. Although larger nations fortified their borders and circumscribed citizenship, two port cities, Hamburg and Altona, opened their doors, as did the federated Swiss cantons and the newly independent Belgian monarchy. The refugees thrived, and the societies that harbored them prospered. The United States followed, not only welcoming waves of immigrants in the mid-19th century, but offering them citizenship as well. Okay, all right. Well, yes, the United States did indeed do that, including plenty of Irish people who were fleeing from hunger, not revolution. In the wake of the American and French Revolutions, thousands of women. I wonder what. There's a gap there, though, because we're talking about the mid-19th century. So we go from the American and French Revolutions to the mid-19th century. Anyway, but it's just the pub sheet. It's not the book. I have a feeling that the revolutions here are the revolutions of 1848. Not the American Revolution and the French Revolution, but the revolutions of 1848 that did displace lots of people. I have a feeling that's probably what we're talking about here, not not revolutions that are like a century earlier. But it doesn't matter to me. It's serious history, so I'll gobble it right up. Let's see here. What's this next one? You've got some sort of paperwork on you, don't you? Okay, this is another finished copy. Be careful about what we have here. What have we here? Okay, no pub sheet on this, so we'll just... I don't have a date for it, but we'll just read it like we found it in a bookstore. This is by Celia Bell, and it's called The Disenchantment. Look at that. Another nice cover. Another nice American cover. What have we got here? In 17th century Paris, everyone has something to hide. So historical fiction. Noblemen, noble women, and writers consort with fortune tellers in the confines of their home. Servants practice witchcraft and black magic, and aristocrats poison family members to obtain an inheritance. But Marie Catherine La Jumelle, who's the Baroness of Cardonnay, wishes only to hide how unhappy she is in her marriage and the pleasure she seeks outside of it. When her husband is present, Maria Catherine spends her days tending to children and telling them elaborate fairy tales. When he's gone, she indulges in a more liberated existence, one of forward-thinking discussions with female scholars in the salons of great houses. At the center of her freedom is Victoire Rose de Bourbon, Mademoiselle de Conti, the androgynous, self-assured aristocrat who steals Marie Catherine's heart and becomes her lover. She possesses everything Marie Catherine does not: confidence in her love and a brazen fearlessness in all she's willing to do for it. But when a shocking and unexpected murder occurs, Marie Catherine must escape, and what she discovers is the dark underbelly of a city full of people who have secrets they would kill to keep. Okay, so Victoire must be the one who dies. Okay, so who is Celia Bell? We'll run the risk here. We're doing fine for a book haul, so we'll run the risk of looking at her author bio. She's very young. She's written short fiction for VQR, The White Review, The Sewanee Review, The Southern Review, and Bomb. She received a prize for fiction in 2018 and holds an MFA from the New Writers Project at the University of Texas, and she lives in Austin, my old home. Fantastic. Okay, The Disenchantment. Fairly heady historical fiction. Then we've got 3 more packages here, but 2 of them are boxes, so we'll save those. And we have one of these big pressed white envelopes. We'll do that first. I like to save the boxes for the end, even though it's kind of dumb. What have we got here? Okay, we have translated fiction from Soho Crime. They do great work. They've got a great crew of people there. And I've been having a lot of luck in 2023 so far with translated fiction. I've been getting a lot of it. I've been reading a lot of it, and I've been having a lot of fun. A lot of it's been really good. So this comes out in early May. This is by Fuminori Nakamura, translated by Sam Bett. Pretty sure we've seen Fuminori Nakamura many times on this channel. And I wasn't Fuminori Nakamura the author of a little book called The Gun? Pretty sure that he was. I reviewed it. I think I reviewed The Gun, and I don't remember liking it. Yeah, he did write The Gun. Okay. But this is his new book, The Rope Artist, and I want to show you, this is a finished copy, and this is what you're getting. There's no dust jacket. Instead, it's a window on the end papers. Isn't that incredible? I wonder if this is cheaper to do than getting a dust jacket. I'd love to think it was. I'd love to see more of it. But that is a window onto the end papers, but the cover also describes a particular kind of rope work in a certain segment of Japanese society. I wonder what we're going to get into with this pub sheet. Let's see here. This latest novel combines cerebral noir and police procedural in a darkly satisfying exploration of art, sex, empowerment, spirituality, and masochism in Japanese bondage. Oh my God. We are actually going to go there. In his 20 years as an author, Fuminori Nakamura has carved a space uniquely his own in the category of literary crime fiction. His prose is straightforward. Well, okay, that's one way to put it. His prose is straightforward, yet his plotting is stealthily intricate. And not in The Gun, it wasn't. In The Gun, a guy has a gun, he decides whether or not he's going to shoot somebody, then he shoots somebody. That's not stealthily intricate. And his subjects provide insidious exhibitions of humanity's most depraved vices. In mind-bending narratives, his daring explorations of physical and psychological violence, obsession. Okay, well, we don't. Okay, all right, let's go on to the book, for God's sake. And before you start crediting him with the invention of penicillin, let's go on. In this book, he delves into the world of kinbaku. I can't believe I'm reading this. The Japanese style of rope bondage with a complex history of spirituality, torture, cleansing, and sacrifice. The narrative begins with a kinbaku artist found dead in his apartment and proceeds in 2 parts, following the disparate investigations of 2 detectives on the case. First, we follow Togashi, who races to get ahead of the investigation before his secret connection to the suspect reveals his personal and professional transgressions. Transgressions? Are we going to call it a transgression all throughout the book? Surely someone on the internet in Japan has got word of the phrase kink shaming. We don't want to be doing that, do we? When Togashi's frenzied perspective oozes Nakamura's signature existential noir, the second half of I'm not sure that I want Togashi's segment of the book to ooze anything. I'm not going to need a napkin for this thing. The second half of the novel embraces the cadence of the traditional procedural with the investigation of Hayama, a buttoned-up, morally upright detective with Sherlock Holmesian powers of deduction. Okay, but what does that morally upright mean? Okay, well, anyway, let's move on here. As these investigations unfold across Japan's underground BDSM scene, intense conversations, hypnotic bondage descriptions, and visceral sex scenes are layered with unsentimental ruminations on moral detritus and enlightening passages on kinbaku's history and evolution. True to form, the author includes many twists, betrayals, and shocks to the senses along the way, but perhaps the biggest surprise of all is how this violent story ends on a hopeful note, at least for some characters. Okay, so this book deals with it involves the Japanese underground BDSM scene, intensive conversations, hypnotic bondage descriptions, and visceral sex scenes layered with unsentimental ruminations on moral detritus and enlightening passages on kinbaku's history and evolution. So it's just possible, theoretically, that Gina Stanier will give this one a pass. I'm not seeing this as Miss Reed goes to the bondage parlor. I don't think that's going to happen. But I will read it. And maybe this author will... I mean, this sounds like dense material. It sounds very dark in a way that, the publicists for his earlier books have certainly wanted to describe him that way, but they've always felt to me a little bit tame. So we'll see. I mean, this is when did this actually come out? Is this a fairly new translation? It's a fairly new book. 2018. So no, it's not. It's 5 years old. But this book could go one of 2 ways. Either this is the author pushing himself, delve into a world and learn about it, and then make a convincing police procedural on top of it, or it's the whole of that world, the whole of this world is going to be treated as one unrelieved freak show. I have a feeling that won't be true with this book because one of the characters is involved in that world, and he's got a job. So we shall see. It's intriguing, and it's early May, so theoretically I could do it tonight. And boy, oh boy, do I love the makeup here. I mean, this is no dust jacket for Steve to rip. It's a gatefold, but it's not paper, so this isn't going to get destroyed right away. This is actually really nice. Really wish more books did that. But anyway, now let's move on to the boxes. They aren't very big. Neither one of them is the kind of Steve tome that I usually like to get in boxes. But then again, this whole mail haul was going to go downhill after the first book, after What an Owl Knows. There wasn't really any competing with that. Oh, great. Oh, wow. Okay. This publisher, this is Princeton University Press, they sent me a really nice e-copy. A lot of times e-copies sent by publishers are not nice. They're not really finished. There's no cover image. There's, watermarks stamped across it or stuff like that. But the advanced copy that they sent for this thing went straight on my iPad. I just started reading it. But I think this has a while to come out. Yeah, this comes out in September. This is by Peter Anderson, and it's called Fool. And it's in search of Henry VIII's closest man. That's what the cover calls it. Will Sommer. Who most of you, if you know that name at all, Will Sommer was Henry VIII's fool. which was an actual position at court. It isn't anymore. But once upon a time, the king had a fool, a designated fool. You could belt him around. People could make fun of him. People could throw food at him. People could dribble, water on his head or whatnot. But he always had the ear of the king. He was always had the physical proximity to the king, and he could say things to the king that no one else could say. That was the license of the fool, was to say, "You're an ass, and so is that guy that just left the room," even if the guy that just left the room is the Duke of Norfolk. And most of you, if you know Will Sommer at all, will know him as the main character of Elizabeth George's novel, The Autobiography of Henry VIII. But this is a story about him. This is a book that delves into what we know about him. What can we find out here? I don't have a sheet. This is the first ever biography of King Henry VIII's court fool. I don't know how you could get a biography of him. Do we even know where Will Sommer was born? Maybe the author researched it. Well, let's see. In some portraits of Henry VIII, there appears another striking figure, a gaunt and morose-looking man with a shaved head, and in one case, a monkey on his shoulder. This is William or Will Sommer, the king's fool, a celebrated wit who reportedly could raise Henry's spirits and spent many hours with him, often alone. Was Sommer an artificial fool, a cunning comic who could speak freely in front of the king, or a natural fool, someone with intellectual disabilities, like many other members of the profession? And what role did he play in the tumultuous and violent Tudor era? This book is the first biography of Sommer, and perhaps the first of a Renaissance fool. After his death, Sommer disappeared behind his legend, and historians struggled to separate myth from reality. Unearthing as many facts as possible, the author pieces together the fullest picture yet of an enigmatic and unusual man with a very strange job. Sommer's story provides new insights into how fools lived and what exactly they did for a living, how monarchs and courtiers related to commoners with people with disabilities, and whether aspects of the Renaissance fool lived on in the modern comedian. Having a fool was very common. In almost all royal courts it happened, and usually it was in the, I hate to say it, but usually it was in Italy that the court fool was also mentally handicapped, where the court fool was both acting foolish and also half-witted. And it was one of the worst aspects of those earlier centuries, is the barbaric way that was handled. There was, in general public, there was no compassion. If you were dragging a foot, or you had, Down syndrome or something like that, you were an object of unrepentant and unremitting mockery and physical abuse. It was viewed as funny. It's really, really hard to see accounts like that, to read accounts like that. But in England, certainly, you wouldn't have lasted long if you were a fool and you actually were mentally handicapped. That Will Sommer certainly was not mentally handicapped. I hope the author finds that. I hope the author realizes that or comes to it. But most of all, we learn how a commoner without property or education managed to become the court's chief mascot and a continuous presence in the center of Tudor power from the 1530s to the reign of Elizabeth I. Fantastic. Okay, that's a little thing, but it couldn't be really big. Great, fantastic. So this, what did we say again? September. That comes out in September. Tudor history. And then we'll do this last one, and then we'll be done. What a successful mail haul! Not a rant anywhere. Not a rant to be seen. This doesn't want to come quietly, does it? Let's see what we got here. Get paperwork out of here. What is this last one? Okay, this is also from the folks at Princeton. Boy, they keep me supplied. Well, I've written a lot of reviews for Princeton, so that's probably understandable. This comes out in November. Oh my God! Well, that's the latest book we have so far. This is by Colleen Murphy, and it's called How We Age, The Science of Longevity. Am I going to live to November? Am I going to be able to see this? That would be great if I did. I don't have a sheet for this, but let's see what we have here. All of us would like to live longer, or to slow the debilitating effects of age. In this book, the author shows how recent research on longevity and aging may be bringing us closer to this goal. The author is a leading scholar of aging, and here explains that the study of model systems, particularly simple invertebrate animals, combined with breakthroughs in genomic methods, have allowed scientists to probe the molecular mechanisms of longevity and aging. Understanding the fundamental biological rules that govern aging in model systems provided clues about how we might slow human aging, which could lead us in turn to new therapeutics and treatments for age-related disease. Okay, among other vivid examples, the author describes research that showed how changing a single gene in the nematode worm C. elegans doubles its lifespan, extending not only the end of life, but also the youthful, healthy part of it. One gene. Drawing on work in her own lab as well as other recent research, the author describes the history and current state of the field, explaining longevity's link to reproduction and mating, sensory and cognitive function, inheritances from our ancestors, and the gut microbiome. Okay. All right. Well, the science of aging. It's true that everybody thinks about it. Everybody obsesses about it to one level or another. I do, in a way, but only half of that equation. The main thing that I care about is that bit about age's infirmities. I'd love it if science could find a way to get you to your 70 without your body slowly falling apart. Because I got a horrible newsflash for you, for you young people. It does do that. It gradually falls apart. Unless you're lucky enough to have something catastrophic happen to you, what's going to happen is that things are going to gradually fall apart. And that takes a struggle to be funny about, to be upbeat about, because it's things that you treasured. It's things you didn't know you treasured. It's the ability to get up from the floor. It's the ability to go all day long without what feels like a serious pain somewhere, or a nagging discomfort that doesn't ever quite rise to the level of serious pain, but is never gone. When you're young, that's just not within the realm of your experience. You have to wait. Many authors have talked about the indignities of age. That's entirely true. That's the element of this that I would be interested in, not the element of sticking around for 300 years. Wouldn't really be interested in doing that, but you never know. Maybe I will get more interested in it. Certainly, I always think about one of the most apt things that Christopher Hitchens used to say is that when you're dying or just aging out or whatever, it's not that the party is coming to an end. It's much worse than that. It's that the party is going on, but you have to leave. And that's absolutely true. Oh my God, that feeling is really pronounced even at 28. Imagine what I'll feel like when I'm, God forbid, 70. But naturally, when I think about a subject like this, I think about what I wouldn't give to have me sainted Ma still here. To have me sainted Ma still here at 100 and something. Still clear of mind. What I wouldn't give for that to be true. Anyway, it's going to be outside of my reach, but not outside the reach of a lot of the young people watching this video. Very interesting. All right, so that's November. How we age. Then we've got Fool, a biography of Will Summer, of Henry VIII's Fool. We have The Rope Artist, in which a police procedural set in Japan's underground bondage world. We have The Disenchantment by Celia Bell, a historical novel about a woman seeking freedom and gaining at least the image of it at the encouragement of another woman. And it's pretty clear from that dust jacket that the tragedy that happens is that other woman dies, and maybe that our main character is implicated. Then we have Asylum Between Nations, Refugees in the Revolutionary Era, from Yale. We have The Heart of It All by Christian Kiefer, Midwestern fiction set during the first year of the Trump administration. And finally, What an Owl Knows by Jennifer Ackerman. So not only would it be great just because of its subject, but it's also great because of its author. This could be about pigeons. And if it said Jennifer Ackerman on the cover, I would still be overjoyed because she is so good. Any of you who have read The Genius of Birds will know. And she also she had another book about birds that was repackaged by her publisher as the Genius, or The Bird Way. I think it was called The Bird Way. Is that right? Yeah, The Bird Way. That they took an earlier book and repackaged it to seem like a companion piece to The Genius of Birds. And they're both fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So talk about credit in the bank of Steve. That's great. All right, so there you go. There was some mail plus a periodical. And no trouble. Not a single hint of trouble. How wonderful. So let's see if we can keep this up tomorrow. We'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.